This episode is brought to you by the Ultimate Girls Trip. Here is our reoccurring daydream. Us at a drool-worthy pool, surrounded by our business besties. We just finished a powerful exercise on building our dream lives and executing our business goals. Join us if you are ready to be celebrated for taking up space, to feel purposeful, and to live a life of fulfillment. Go to proofitspossible.com for more info. Welcome to Proof It's Possible. Jamie and I are multifaceted entrepreneurs, the founders of the Ultimate Girls Trip, and the hosts of Proof It's Possible. Jamie and I are also sisters, best friends, and complete opposites, but somehow we always manage to stay on the same team. Join us every week to hear our thoughts on all things entrepreneurship, friendship, family, pop culture, and more. Welcome back. Today it is a very fun and different episode. It is just me, Dayle, by myself, with a special guest, Ciara Halsted from the Ciara Lee Collective and Unity Collective, which is something that we're going to jump way into. She is the queen bee of brows, and she is about to be the queen bee of making women feel their most beautiful and empowered selves. So, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to get you to introduce yourself and your exciting latest business and the little synopsis.
Adventure.
Yeah, a little synopsis on how you got here and what it's all about and why you're doing it.
Alrighty, a loaded question right out of the gate. I guess, do you want me to start with how I got here and then business?
Yeah.
So my background is in aesthetics, which started probably about 16 years ago, I would say-ish, probably when I started doing your services.
I know, we're getting old.
Yeah, we are getting old. That was not where I was going with that. I would say about 16 years ago, I started working for a company called Frilly Lily, which is phenomenal. And in that company, I was able to work with some really empowering women who really wanted to see other women grow. And I noticed it and recognized it right away. And it just felt really right to me. At the time, I didn't recognize how it would impact me now. But it was kind of the foundation of what brought me here and what led me to want to be the same kind of influence on other women. So I started in aesthetics. And from there, I loved what I was doing. I loved working with clients. I loved helping them. I loved connecting with them. And I found I was creating connections that were becoming friendships, and that was serving a really great purpose overall, both in my life personally, in my life professionally, and in the client's lives.
Right.
But I found myself kind of at a crossroad where I was working for somebody else and just not making enough money to make ends meet. And I think at the end of the day, we've talked about this, money is such a shame, taboo subject.
Yeah.
But none of us can do anything without it. So, it was a driving force for me to make change for sure. With that change came on new services that were scary to kind of get started on. Doing anything new is always challenging.
Yes.
But I did it anyways. And I just kept evolving. So I kept adding new services and I kept evolving in a direction that led me to being an entrepreneur solely by myself. So I went through a few stages throughout that process where I had partnered with a few different people. I've owned different companies. Ultimately, all of those experiences led me to where I am now, where I now house a team of women who are incredibly educated and brilliant and excited. They all have the same vision to kind of help women grow and feel like their best selves. It's interesting to see yourself 16 years ago working with women that you admired and seeing what they brought to the table and then mimicking it in some capacity, right? Taking what the value of that and creating something new for more people to have that same experience.
Well, and something that I will just say before you finish kind of like what you're on to next isn't it so cool to rise and come up with a group of women that are like-minded. And it's interesting because we've known each other since we were essentially kids, like teenagers. And we've had friends drop off that there's no like hard feelings, but you lose touch with them. You and outgrow each other. You go in different directions. You don't have anything in common. And then there's girls that you get closer to because you're in the entrepreneur world
Mhm.
together, and you have, I remember we
commonality.
did, yeah, exactly. I remember we did like our lunch and learns when we were trying to figure out social media, like so many millions of
Still working
years
on
ago.
that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's always changing and like kicking our butt, but yeah, basically like we grew together because we were both entrepreneurs, and you grew with Jay because you were both entrepreneurs, and that's what's been sort of a centerpiece to our adult friendship is the commonalities in our lives around being entrepreneurs and having that business bestie feeling.
Yeah, I think it's so important to surround yourself with those people too, because it can be a pretty isolating career choice in a lot of ways, because if you're not around other people who are entrepreneurs and wearing all the hats, a person who's going to, I hate the term regular job, but you know, a 9 to 5 isn't necessarily required to wear all of the hats. They might have many hats within that position. Yeah. But as an entrepreneur, you know, you're doing your accounting, you're doing your website design, you're doing whatever, your booking systems, you're doing your inventory, and you're jumping from all these different things all in one day. And when you don't have other people that recognize the stress of that, it can feel very lonely.
For sure. Okay, tell us about your next thing, your new thing.
Woo! So the newest, well, I rebranded recently, so that was a big thing too. It kind of all just went perfectly together. So I rebranded what was Browse by Ciara to Ciara Collective, which led to the names making sense and kind of going together, which is my new company called Unity Collective. Unity Collective is separate from Ciara Collective. So Ciara Collective is an independent company with just myself. And that's where I do my PMU services, so permanent makeup, and that's where I do my educating. Unity Collective is a powerhouse of women that are all coming together to really showcase their specialties. The overall goal is to have women coming to us to feel seen and heard in their most vulnerable states. So a lot of women are intimidated to get services done in the beauty industry because they don't feel safe to actually express what they're vulnerable about, whether it's a skin condition or a skin concern or, you know, aging. Yeah. And so they get intimidated by some of the other studios that are open because of how they might appear. The women that might be working might be very, you know, young and beautiful and all these things. And a lot of my clientele is intimidated by that. And so we wanted to create a space where anybody could come. Age didn't matter, and you were just safe to come, to feel seen, to feel heard, to express yourself, and that's exactly what we're doing. So I am very excited for that.
What services are you guys offering?
The new studio is offering laser facials. So there's a wide variety of laser facials you can have from a multitude of skin conditions or concerns. We're doing tattoo removal, which has been phenomenal. Botox and filler will be offered by the nurses, and IV hydration therapies will be offered by the nurses. So all three of the girls that have come on are very educated. They're all nurses. We have a medical director as well. So it's super exciting to work with women that really know their stuff. We're excited.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, so let's give the people listening, what is your, a little bit of like advice. So what is your advice for somebody who's like, I have an idea or a dream, or I would love to, you know, get into it. So what's your advice for a new entrepreneur or somebody just starting out that doesn't have it all figured out yet, hasn't made 150 million mistakes yet?
There's so many things to say. One, probably don't tell anyone just yet, because you don't have the confidence yet to actually execute your vision. And our families and the people that love us the most actually are the first ones to say no. And it's out of love, or at least
and concern for us.
I look at it from that perspective anyways. I think they genuinely are worried. What if it fails? What if you get hurt? What if whatever? And so the what ifs as a dreamer, as an entrepreneur, are kind of on the back burner. You don't really think about the what ifs when you're first like having your dream. Excited. You're like, woo, I'm going to do the things and whatever. And then people start to tell you why you can't do your things. And so I would get a pretty concrete vision for yourself before you start sharing it. Because if you're not totally secure in your idea, that can really, really hinder your
Yeah.
confidence and stop you before you even get started. So that one, I would say, like, you know, get your couple people, get your idea going, and then just one step at a time. Everybody wants to look at the big picture of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Well, where would I get an accountant? And I need a GST number and
Yes.
all the things. One step at a time. The first thing
For
you need
sure.
to know is, what is your brand? What does it look like? How do people feel when they have whatever it is that you're selling or a service provided by you? What does that look like? And make that your foundation. Because as soon as you know how you want people to feel, you can start to build all of your fundamental skill sets off of that. You know, this is where we start. This is how we treat people. This is what a service is going to look like. Is it luxurious? Is it fast? Is it this? Is it that? Get an idea of that, then start ticking off the boxes, right? Once you know what your business is going to look like, it's a little bit easier to start, you know, tackling the other things. You also have time. You know, I think a lot of people think the whole business needs to be made in one day.
For sure. And you have to come out perfect.
And you won't.
You won't.
So definitely.
And or even the things you thought were like pretty good, you'll look back 3, 5, 1 year later and be like,
wow,
this is my logo?
Yeah.
No. What was I doing? You know, but when you know better, you do better.
Yeah. I read a bio that I wrote a few years ago and I was like, wow, they knew how old I was in that bio. They knew what I was saying, you know? And so, and it just is, it doesn't matter. It's all about growth. And when you're in it, everybody's proud of you and you're proud of you. And then as you grow and you evolve, you have more knowledge to add to the roster. And that makes it a little bit, it's fun too, to look back and see how far you've come and what you can accomplish.
And you get a lot of, I feel like I get a lot of like empowerment out of taking messy action, doing it to the best of my ability at each phase, and then seeing that I got better. You know,
well, that's just
sucking is part of it. Like having to suck at something is part of it. And I hate to suck at anything. Like I'm a total perfectionist. And I feel like you are too. Yeah. And I don't like to use the word perfectionist. I say I strive for excellence more than I'm a perfectionist, but
I'm with you there.
It doesn't,
or being particular, I'm good with that one too, but perfectionism has such a negative tone to it.
Well, and it is negative because what it does, in my opinion, is it stops you from moving because you're like, until it's perfect, I'm not going to act. And you have to act before you're ready. You have to act before everything is perfect because nothing's ever perfect. Like you'll never have enough money to start the business that you think you need to start the business. You'll never have the perfect website. You'll never have all the professionals, like you were saying, all lined up and the money to pay them and guaranteed. And if you have all that, gosh, good for you. I don't know. You need to even be in business. Just take the money and
take the money
and
run
yourself. Take the money and run. I really would. Any other like things that you would give it for advice?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I'm constantly learning this. So even as an entrepreneur of a long time, I find every time you start something new, you're back in that same vulnerable state where you're feeling all of the things that we just kind of talked about. You're not doing it right. You don't have enough. It needs to be perfect. They all show up. They never, just because you have experience doesn't mean they stop showing up.
No, new level, new devil.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And then you just learn how to recognize it.
Exactly.
And see it and call it for what it is. And then deal with that. I think what happens to most people is entrepreneur paralysis.
Yeah.
You stop in that track of, okay, this idea is great, but what if, but, and then you don't do anything. And for me, I'm really incredibly intuitive. I really listen to my body. As soon as I'm in that state of unease, I know transformation is coming and we need to push through it.
Exactly.
But that state of unease is where most people quit. So out of 10 people that want to be an entrepreneur, 9 are going to drop off because that unease to them is read as a warning sign, a red flag, a don't move forward. And it usually is just discomfort, something new, risk of failure,
not knowing what you're doing, not confident in what you're doing. Yeah.
Confidence is not that, nobody is actually 100% confident in anything they do. It's a fake it till you make it type of thing. Yeah. And even then, it's you gain it as you go. And I think the expectation that an entrepreneur is going to start their job and be awesome, even the expectation on yourself is so limiting because it's not realistic.
Right.
You wouldn't start a new job working for somebody else and expect to be awesome.
Totally.
You would not.
Well, and the thing is like building self-trust is the biggest confidence builder there is. So you build it by doing. you won't get self-trust by sitting at home and being an armchair idea thinker.
No.
Like you actually have to do the thing to go, I did it. That's amazing. I'm amazing.
That's right. And that's
and then move
confidence
to the
comes
next
from.
thing. And that's where confidence
Mhm.
is built.
Mhm.
All right. So what would you say is the hardest part about being an entrepreneur?
Both. That's tricky. So I think one of the biggest things is people think there's balance.
Yeah.
I don't believe in balance. I like
Me
to saying
either.
balance is bullshit. Every stage of your life is going to require you to give different parts of it a different amount of energy. So for example, right now when I'm in transition on building a new brand, obviously that's on the forefront. I'm at meetings all the time. I'm doing the things, I'm doing the back end stuff, the computer stuff, the website stuff, the orders, the pre and post, whatever that looks like,
Right.
takes a lot of time. And so if I were sitting here trying to have my everyday balance of this many hours with my kids and this many hours to work out and journal and do yada, 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 and then also add in a new business, the balance is off. Balance
Right.
is supposed to be temporary. None of us are in balance 24/7. You can't stand on one leg forever.
Yeah.
Like it literally is a temporary state. But I think that we are taught that a perfect life is a balanced life.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think the hardest part of entrepreneurship was recognizing that is not true. That story that we were told, the dream that we were sold is not a reality. It's a matter of giving the things you love your full attention when you do them, even if it's not the same amount of attention all the time.
Or as much time dedicated to each area.
Yeah. So that was really hard because for years I was striving for what does the balance look like? I need to work this many hours a day and then I can only be on social media, which is a huge part of my job, this many hours because otherwise I'm doing too much screen time. And that it looks so different for everyone. And I think recognizing that and learning those lessons yourself is one of the hardest parts of entrepreneurship.
Well, and that makes me think of something that, don't you think we're really hard on ourselves? Like, it's one of those things we have to be great at our job the first day we get there.
Yeah.
Even though it's brand new to us and we've never been an entrepreneur, we've never done this job before. We need to balance everything, make sure everything's perfect so that we're not leaving our kids in the dust while we chase our dreams and we're a terrible mother, or we're not, never hanging out with our husband because we have to work all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're actually just judging ourselves. And whoever planted these seeds of judgment or wherever they come from, societal things, whatever, I do think that that's why it's so important to have other entrepreneurs in your life so that you can have this conversation and let them stop judging themselves.
Yeah, it does come down to judgment, doesn't it?
It does. It really, because it's an ideal that you're just judging yourself the minute you're not meeting that ideal.
Yeah. And
that's shitty.
And it's so subjective. Who gets to determine what balance is? Who made that rule?
And
why are we following it?
For sure. And I walk the line really, really, because I do believe that good, what's the word? Good habits lead to success. So I know I'm not my best when I don't do my bike.
Yeah.
For 2 months straight. Yeah. When I leave that part of my life completely out, I know troubles to come, I'm going to have that hard, God, everything's going crazy. I'm not doing anything because I'm judging myself even more and all the things. So but I also have to have some flexibility because if I don't allow for that flexibility to be today's not the day for my bike. I worked 12 hours and I didn't even talk to Darren, and I'm choosing to hang out with Darren for the last few hours of the day versus go into the closet where my bike sits and do my bike. That's not the right balance for me. That's so right. I think giving ourselves some grace around it, but also knowing that you can't do nothing, stay in bed till noon and chase have all these big dreams but never actually act on them.
That's all they'll be.
Yeah. And not be physically healthy and not be mentally healthy. I do think that it's such a counterintuitive thing because it's balance is bullshit, but it's also you need to feed all the areas of your soul, which is mind, body, and spirit, in my opinion. So it's
but I think that would play into your healthy boundaries and habits versus your balance, right? Because a habit is something you're going to do that makes you show up better, makes you feel better. Yeah. I work out every day. You try to do your workouts, whatever that looks like for something that helps your mind, body, spirit.
Exactly.
But thinking you have to do this, 25 step list every single day that includes like your 20-minute read to your kids, and then you're going to brush their hair 12 times,
exactly.
whatever
a
else.
2-hour walk.
Yeah, whatever else the list looks like.
Yeah.
It's when times change and things shift, like right now, and I'm in the heat of all of the things. Starting a new business is not for the faint of heart. It definitely takes a lot of work and a lot of time. Is not the time for me to sit and focus and stress about, maybe not having been able to go to the park every single day this week.
Yeah.
There are other ways you can still spend time with the people you love, fill their buckets, fill your bucket, while shifting where that balance is in that moment, because it's going to shift again.
Absolutely.
Right. And the healthy habits should never go.
No, exactly. And like the things that keep your mental health straight and all that stuff. All right. So now I'm going to flip the question. What is your most, like, the best part of being an entrepreneur?
My freedom.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think for a lot of people, they feel like you're never free when you're an entrepreneur, which I guess in hindsight, maybe you're not in regards to like always wanting to chase the dream, but that's also a desire for me.
It's a choice.
It's fulfilling. It's a choice. It's something I like. I'm not the person that's like, I hate social media and I hate that I have to do that in my job. Right. I think the reason for that is because I flipped my perspective. If I had to look at what it would cost to invest in advertising on social media, and that had to fit into my budget, I would then hate social media because it would cost me an arm and a leg. But I get to advertise for free in all areas of my life every single day. So I'm actually really grateful for social media. Is it daunting sometimes to feel like you need to be present always? For sure. Anyone who says it's not is just not telling the truth, but I genuinely like sharing my life. Yeah. So it doesn't feel like a big task for me to post my lunch or what I'm doing for the kids or whatever is easy for me. It's habitual.
Speaking of sharing your life, I will give you a shout out, and we've talked about you in past episodes because Ciara is very good at something that I think is important on social media, and she's not selling us something all the time. She's just sharing her life. And I think that is the biggest key to social media and like social selling is that you're like I've used the example of like you're making your kids lunches, and Ciara always shares what she puts in the kids lunches because a lot of her potential clients are maybe moms and they're looking for inspiration. Like every mom's like, what do I put in these damn lunches? I'm sick of lunches. And I think people are there for that content. And then they're like, oh, these brows are really nice. Maybe I'll get my brows done. And they have nothing to do with each other, but they're two parts of Ciara. Yeah. And you do a really nice job with the lunches. And next thing you know, I'm like, I don't
You're making a bento box.
No, exactly. I'm like, so these little granola crunchies that you're putting in the lunch. Yeah, I'm like, I'm going to look for those at Costco too. I don't need to make a lunch, but I think I would like them. And it's like, what am I doing watching 3 slides worth of lunch making? But here I am caring about your life because you share a lot about your life and I appreciate it. And for me, because I'm also your friend, I'm like, oh, okay, well, what's she up to? And there's businesses that are a lot less personal and maybe you wouldn't share the lunch making. I don't know, whatever it looks like for your life. But if the only time an entrepreneur shows up on their social media is to just get product out the door or sell a spot here or there, you lose people in between those gaps. And I think that's
well, there's no interest there. There's nothing out. There's nothing else of value there.
Totally. And you're not serving anybody outside.
And that's the whole thing for me is like, I want my services to be of value in many ways. And that also includes when they're in my chair. Totally. Like, yes, I'm there providing a service for you that you're excited about, but the value, the follow-up is usually about the conversations that have happened while somebody's with me, whatever crisis they're having in their life, something they're going through, something I can relate to, and I'm able to offer support in some capacity, be it, hey, I read this book that might be helpful for you, or I see this, my spiritual mentor, so-and-so, or whatever. They follow up with me after that for the personal connection, not just because I've done their eyebrows. And that I think is so valuable. The lunch stuff is funny to me because when I don't post lunches, like in my mind as an entrepreneur, which is going to be many entrepreneurs, you think you're very boring and you have nothing to bring to the table. Like who actually would sit down and say, you know what's going to take off? Is making lunches. Like I didn't think that. I just thought, this is what I do every night. So why not just show people like my life? Right. And I remember specifically having a client reach out and she says, you haven't posted lunches yet. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a bit behind today. And then she's like, to be honest, I'm a doctor with no children. I wait for your lunch to make my own lunch. And I was dying of laughter because I was like, what? Why? Like I'm making, whatever, cutting up their fruit, leaving a little note. Like, I want to know, do you write yourself the love note too?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you should.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it was really funny because I wasn't expecting that. I just was authentically showing up.
For sure. Or even like you've made dinner and I'm like, give me the recipe. Mm-hmm. Do you want to know how many of them I've made? Zero.
But you have them all
Zero. Oh, yeah. I like screenshot the recipe and I actually never make them. Yeah. But I just think to myself, just come over and make it for me.
I would do that.
Okay, one last quick question. What, in your opinion, you've built a very, very strong community. Your business is about community, in my opinion. And I believe in community, and this podcast is about community and finding women who are like-minded. So what do you think why did you go that route, and what's the value in that for you?
I don't know that when I first set out as an entrepreneur, it was aimed towards creating community. I don't think I even actually really knew the value of community at that point.
Right.
I think I have always been drawn to connections. I value them deeply, be it with a stranger or, someone who's really important in my life. The one-on-one is important to me. Yeah. The actual, I don't care about the weather. I want to get right to the nitty-gritty. Like, what's going on in your life? What's your trauma? Yeah. Tell me all the things, And I just feel like I've always been like that. And I think that naturally creates community. And then as I was trying to connect with people and see, how can I help this person? How can I serve this person? What can I bring to the table for them? A community was born because it just went together where these people,
genuine.
These people wanted to stay in my community. They wanted to support me. And in turn, I felt the same about them.
Yeah.
When I had a community established and I recognized, there's been a few things in my life that have taken place that were, traumatic or dramatic or whatever. One of which last year when my dad was incredibly ill, this sense of community that I had was, I can't admit it, could make me quite literally cry because people show up for you that you don't even know are in your corner.
Yeah.
And he was in the hospital and so sick and I couldn't get help one day and I posted at midnight, does anyone work in this hospital? And it gives me goosebumps because my phone blew up and everyone's like, what do you need? How can I help? Within 1 hour, strangers were helping my dad who was in critical condition. And it made me recognize the value and the strength of community.
For sure. And how it's not about business necessarily. Mm-hmm. It's just about creating a bigger, common good.
A common good where everybody cares for everybody. Something I think that is not prioritized anymore.
No.
And that showed me what does this look like when you show up, when someone's sick and you drop off the meal, when it just makes such a huge impact that I live for it. I think it's the best. It's the life I want to live forever.
Yeah.
But did I set out for it? I don't think so. I think when I first started that many years ago, I had no idea the potential of a great community.
Yeah.
But now, loving it.
Love it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. That was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We are so grateful you're here.
It would mean the world to us if you'll subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel and leave us a review.
If you want to hear more from us, go to proofitspossible.com to join our mailing list and find our social links so you don't miss a thing.
Thanks and chat next time.